How would the lesson of the fig tree relate to the destruction of Jerusalem? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Luke on Walking Through the Bible. If you have a Bible with you, turn to Luke 21. We're going to be reading from verses 29 to 37. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So Luke 21, beginning of verse 29. Then he spoke to them a parable. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. When they are already budding, you see and know for yourselves that summer is now near. So you also, when you see these things happening, know that the kingdom of God is near. Assuredly I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away. But take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and cares of this day, and that day come upon you unexpectedly. For it will come as a snare on all those who dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch therefore, and pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. And in the daytime he was teaching in the temple, but at night he went out and stayed on the mountain called Olivet. Then early in the morning all the people came to him in the temple to hear him. It is still the Tuesday before Jesus' crucifixion. Jesus has done his public teaching and is talking to his disciples. They were going on and on about how beautiful the temple was, while Jesus came out and told them that one day, one stone would not be left upon another. In other words, it would be completely destroyed. Such talk would of course shock the disciples, and so they asked him if there would be any accompanying signs. In the first part of his discourse, he gave them what would not be signs: wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes, pestilences, and the like. They would come before the destruction, as these always happen, but they were not signs that the destruction was imminent. The signs that the destruction was near was when the armies of the Romans surrounded Jerusalem. When they saw this, they were to flee Judea to the mountains. They weren't to delay either, or else they would be killed. To illustrate his point about looking for signs, Jesus tells them a parable about a fig tree in verses 29 and 30. He says that if you look at a fig tree, and all trees for that matter, when you see them budding, you know that summer is near. So too, when you see the things that Jesus spoke of, about the armies surrounding Jerusalem, you know that the kingdom of God is near. Now this phrase, the kingdom of God is near, sounds a little confusing to those who are regular listeners of this podcast, for we have time and time again shown from scriptures that the kingdom of God came at Pentecost and is in existence today. Because many take this passage to refer to Jesus' second coming, they assume that Luke is talking about some earthly kingdom. But verse 32 is going to blow a hole into that argument, for Jesus is going to say that what he is speaking of will occur during the generation that was currently living. So unless Jesus is a liar, these events already did happen, which of course the destruction of Jerusalem some 35 years later would show to be correct. So what is Luke saying here? Well, perhaps a hint can be found in another of Luke's writings, namely the book of Acts. In Acts 28 verses 17 to 22 we read, "And it came to pass after 3 days that Paul called the leaders of the Jews together. So when they had come together, he said to them, 'Men and brethren, though I have done nothing against our people or the customs of our fathers, yet I was delivered as a prisoner from Jerusalem into the hands of the Romans, who, when they had examined me, wanted to let me go, because there was no cause for putting me to death. But when the Jews spoke against it, I was compelled to appeal to Caesar, not that I had anything of which to accuse my nation. For this reason, therefore, I have called for you, to see you and speak with you, because for the hope of Israel I am bound with this chain.' Then they said to him, 'We neither received letters from Judea concerning you, nor have any of the brethren who came reported or spoken any evil of you. But we desire to hear from you what you think, for concerning this sect, we know that there it is spoken against everywhere.'" The events recorded by Luke here in Acts 28 was around 63 AD. The kingdom came at Pentecost around 30 years earlier, yet the teachings about Christ and his kingdom was still considered a sect of Judaism due to the fact that it started in Jerusalem, the Messiah was a Jew, and many of the Jews who were Christians still participated in the festivals of the Jews, even if they didn't do so in order to obey God. This would all end with the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple, with followers of Christ now being seen as distinct from Judaism. Why? Because Judaism needed the temple in order to truly function, while Christians taught that Christ was the sacrifice for sin, and thus the temple and sacrifices were no longer needed. Thus, to outside observers, it was quite clear that Christianity and Judaism were not the same. So in a sense, the kingdom of God was near when it was used by Luke in Luke 21 to show Christians that the kingdom would no longer be seen as Jewish after the destruction of Jerusalem, but would be seen as it was supposed to be seen, a kingdom open to the whole world. And since all these things would be accomplished before this generation died, they were always to be watching and not weighed down with the cares of life, for that day would come unexpectedly, even though there would be signs. If they were drunk or carousing, involved in wild parties, they might miss the signs and be killed by the Romans. They needed to be watchful so that they could be counted worthy to escape by heeding Jesus' teaching. Luke concludes the chapter by giving us a general overview of what had been happening, which is that Jesus taught during the day in the temple, with the people coming to hear him, while at night he went out and stayed on the Mount of Olives. That Jesus was predictable in doing this on this week is the reason that Judas could so easily betray Jesus and lead the soldiers to arrest him a few nights later. With that, our time is up for today. Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Luke chapter 22, verses 1 to 13, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.